I'm David J. Bauman, and this is In Three Poems, the podcast where we read a little poetry with poets at various stages of their careers, and we get to know them a little bit in the course of those three poems. Today's guest is a writer local to me here in central Pennsylvania. Justin Strawser's debut collection, Those Who Wait, is a collection of 147 poems written from the period of 2005 to 2025. Strawser is an award-winning journalist at the Daily Item in Sunbury, and here I am talking with Justin about Those Who Wait. One of the things about this that I love on this podcast is I get to talk to poets from all over the place. I've had people on the West Coast, people on the East Coast, people in the Midwest, and one of my big joys, too, is talking to some local poets near me in a season. And I have one of those with us today, Justin Strawser. Welcome to the podcast, Justin. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, David. I'm excited to be on.
I love the cover of your, is this your first poetry collection?
Yes, this is my first poetry collection, and I'm glad you mentioned the cover because I am in love with it as well. My sister-in-law, she's a local graphic designer.
Yeah.
And she took my vision and just ran with it, and I think it's more than I could have imagined. And she has a couple sketches in the book as well, as long as some other people. But yeah, the cover is very beautiful, and I'm very happy with it.
And am I getting this right? It's those who wait.
Correct.
What has it been like today? You've been very busy. Because you've been all over the place. I've been seeing it on social media, doing readings here and there. In fact, later this evening, you have an open mic. So thank you for taking some time to talk to me during this. What has it been like putting out a first publication like this and doing all these readings?
I self-published back in January, and the benefits of that is, you get to control pretty much everything, but, the detriment is, you don't have the promotion, you don't have the backing of a big company or anything like that. So all that promotion and all that advertisement, and that falls on the author.
Yeah.
And so early in January, I said to my wife, I'm going to have to start doing these poetry open mics. We got to start finding them. I got to start planning some stuff. And so I started organizing. I had a big book launch at Dagenstein Library and at the end of January. And then I started looking up places that had open mics. And I'm going to be honest with you, David, they're few and far between. Mm-hmm. There's Williamsport has some at Otto Bookstore. And it just so happened Jessica Nirvana Ram, Bucknell Stadler Center, I believe. She was in Stadler Center. She was hosting a couple in Lewisburg, and that was about it.
Yeah, there's the River Poets, I think, in Bloomsburg.
I've been up to River Poets as well. Yeah. I would look for open mics that specifically said all acts welcome or we welcome poetry too. So I went up to Bloomsburg for a couple open mics there, and I was the only poet. Well,
that's the other thing. I think it being tough, being sort of in this rural area compared to one of the cities, where we don't have the KGB bar downtown, or some of the other great places to read, and so it's a lot of traveling.
It is, yeah. I went to Hagen's one Thursday evening, which is in the middle of nowhere. I think in the coal region. There was an ice cream shop, and one of the managers was having an open mic there for poetry. And my wife and I went out, and it was just us two, and I think 4 other people. So
that happens. But you know what?
Readings with everybody. So
that can happen even in New York City, the Market Street Library. I read there one time, and almost everybody that was there was either a reader or the spouse or child of one of the readers. So sometimes I don't know why that's so tough at libraries. I mean, being a librarian myself, we found a lot of times we do almost a better reading if we host it outside of the building at like the local pub or something, you know what I mean? And we're looking at doing some things like that, like some adult story time kind of open mic kind of things. Yeah. But I did get to meet you then at the university was partnering with us. We had done like a local authors fair, but now moving it into a full-blown book festival. And so having 16 authors on the Commons right outside the library was awesome back in March. So thank you for being there. That's when we got to meet.
That was a great event, and I met a lot of really cool people at that event.
And I think it's tough, this sort of thing. We've talked to people who are traditionally published or self-published or haven't published a book at all. And I see that same kind of difficulty because a lot of the publishing these days, if it's not with one of the big publishing houses, of course, that it's your other choices are small press publishing or the self-publishing. And even with small press publishing, a lot of those small presses, you know, they don't have the resources. They're maybe run by a couple of people. So that marketing thing, there's a lot to that, you know. And so I've been inspired by your energy, and I appreciate you doing it.
And I've been fortunate enough too that once I started asking around, more people would say, "Oh, you know, so and so does this or so and so does that." Because when I went to the Priestley Library, When I went to the Priestley Chapel back in January, there were a few people there that directed me to different people, and one of those people I was directed to you. So,
great.
They said David Bauman was starting this In3 Poems podcast. Here's a way to get a hold of him. So, I was very excited to contact you, and other people out as well.
I'm so glad they gave you my name in the podcast. To go to a local thing, it's better than sitting at home, although that's tempting sometimes, especially since the pandemic. That was really hard for me to get back out there again.
Yeah, and there are a lot of talented people out there that don't have books, or they're not published. Yeah. They've never put anything in any magazines or literary journals or whatever, and they get up there to read, and I am just blown away by the amount of talent and just beauty that they have in their words.
And it's a fun sort of thing to do too, because then you can test out some new material to place like that. So normally the way this podcast goes, instead of me talking too much, is we read some poems, and one of the things is I get to read the first one.
This is the podcast special announcement. I love your voice.
Thank you.
I think you have such a great reading voice, and I'm excited to hear my poems come out of your.
Now I'm really going to be nervous. I'm nervous before every one of these, but thank you. I appreciate that. Well, the first poem that we're going to look at then is from the book.
Yes.
Those Who Wait, and it's called Tree Bark. This kind of spoke to me, and we can talk about why, but let's just jump into the poem. Tree Bark. When I drive by the place where you died, I notice the tree that took your life is still standing, and the bark where your car hit has never grown back. After 16 years, the evidence of your death has never gone away. I say out loud, good. The tree that killed you should not be allowed to forget the terrible thing it did when it snatched you away. I hesitate because I am also empathetic. I, too, know what it's like to always remember what happened and to still bear the marks of your passing.
Thank you for reading that.
Oh, thank you. There's a poem that I was in my first chapbook. One of the poems was about a dear friend of mine who passed away actually in a hospital bed, but I used the metaphor of going by and seeing those crosses along the side of the road, you know, that people put up and saying, you know, that's not how I would want to remember you. And yet, when you see like the marks on the tree, I know one of the things they always tell you in poetry class is not to anthropomorphize things too much, you know, that don't have, but yet the metaphor is part of it, you know, and you're just being so, I think, honest as a person in grief. Sure, it's not logical to blame the damn tree, but you can't help it, you know. What it was this, I'm taking, and if it's too much to ask, that's fine, but I'm taking this as a real situation that it's based on.
Yeah, this is I had a friend at the time 16 years ago, but we'll say 2008 was the time frame, and she was a close friend. We got to know each other in high school and sort of drifted apart for a while, and then in 2008 we started to get to know each other again, and she was driving one day not very safely and left the road and hit the tree. And it was very, very close to her house and very, very close to my house. And it was a path that I took through the area on a very regular basis. And so there was a long period of time where I avoided the road. I would take another route to get where I needed to go. But every time I took that road, you know, the tree is right there, and passing by it, there's the tree bark is broken off, never has grown back. And it just, every time I drive by it, it just reminds me of her.
And it's a great metaphor for trauma that we experience as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the person who's passed is no longer suffering, but then we are in the memory. And I love that just near the end to always remember what happened and to still bear the marks. I've often been grateful that a cousin who I was very close to, my cousin Sam, who was killed in a car accident late at night, running into a utility pole. I was often glad that I don't know where that, I mean, I kind of know, I know what road it was on, and I think about it when I was out there, but I'm kind of glad I don't know exactly the exact spot, because I think that would be difficult. And I imagine, well, obviously it is. What else did you want to say about this piece?
Well, I think it falls into sort of the theme of that portion of the book. When over a 5-year period, I did lose about 5 people that I care very deeply about from about 2003, I think it was, to 2005, or I'm sorry, 2008. And so a lot of the poetry in there was written during that time, but a lot of it was also written after, when I came back to sort of exploring poetry a little bit more in my later years. So that portion of the book covers a lot of grief, and it really shows, I think, what I went through and what people go through in grief. Because I try not to flower up the language a whole lot in my poetry. Yeah. One of the things that I heard while sitting at a lot of these open mics and these book festivals is, oh, I don't like poetry, I don't understand it. I think that a lot of people go through grief and go through depression and go through these terrible things in their life. I've been told that I speak pretty honestly about how I've managed to get through that.
Yeah. I remember Matthew McConaughey was saying something in some interview where he said, a lot of people say they don't like poetry or they don't know much about literature, but yet, when somebody dies, or when your daughter's getting married, or, something is happening that's important in your life, that's where those words, really speak to you. I remember being at the first library I worked at. I set up a poetry workshop to see who would come. And this young lady said, "Oh, I want to sign up for the pottery workshop." And, and I said, "Oh, no, it's poetry." And she said, "Oh, I hate poetry."
Yeah, I've heard that a couple times in the last months. I did an author event a couple months ago, and I left to go use the restroom, and my niece and her husband kind of manned the table for me. And I got back, and she said, my niece goes, "Yeah, there was one lady here who stopped, and as soon as we said poetry, she's like, 'Nope,' and just left." I don't know if she left like the whole thing, but she left my table, and she just wanted nothing to do with it. But
well, it's not off topic really, because I think maybe somebody who's looking for a podcast, of course, with a title like In 3 Poems, you obviously know what it is.
Yeah, you kind of know what.
But maybe there's a slight chance that, somebody, hey, maybe you think you don't like poetry, give us 20 minutes or half an hour. Maybe In 3 Poems will change your mind. For a lot of people, your art is something that is almost a salvation in a lot of ways. Poetry is sort of like church to me these days.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, and so going to, if I'm going somewhere where there's good music, especially if it's local, or hearing people's art, that's almost like a spiritual experience, and that's a lot to say for a non-spiritual guy like me. So that leads me into thinking about, you're a newspaper writer for a living, right?
Yes. I worked at the Daily Item since 2014, and been in the business since I graduated college in 2008.
So when I was at a local nonprofit conference recently, somebody asked me like, "Well, you're a poet. What are you doing here?" and I thought it was a valid question, I suppose. But what led you? Do you think were you writing poems early in your life?
Yeah.
And so what led you to actually put together a collection? Was it like poems that you had gathered over time?
Oh yeah, it's been a long labor of love. I wrote a little bit of poetry as like a young whippersnapper teenager, but it wasn't until like probably maybe a year or two before I graduated high school that I started taking it a little bit more seriously. Mm-hmm. And I would write in my notebooks and fill them up And because I had so much teenager angst, I would fill up a notebook in like weeks. I've been writing over, maybe 22 years in these notebooks. So I took the date of 2005 and I went to 2025. And I said, let me look through my notebooks and see what I have in here that I might be able to put together. I had a lot of people say whenever I shared poetry that, hey, when's your book coming out? And
great.
I finally, at the beginning of 2025, decided, yeah, I could probably do this. I feel like I have enough. And the other sort of catalyst of deciding I wanted to write a book and put these poems together, I had suggested to my wife, why don't we look through all of our old notebooks and poetry and journals? And so we spent nights and nights over the summer of 2024, just sort of reading each other's words back and forth to each other. Nice. And it was a very intimate activity. And it brought us really closer as a couple, even though we had been together for, almost a decade. We were still sort of learning new things about each other and learning new stories. Awesome. So that was sort of what led to me picking up poetry again and deciding that I wanted to put a book out there.
I love it. So let's get to the second poem. And this is also from the book. Is there anything you want to tell us about this before you read it?
Let me just say that this is one poem in a series of ongoing poems.
Gotcha.
About my son. He's 3.5 now, and part of the book is a section of poetry about him or things that he had said or things that I have felt while raising him. So this one is called Moments That Feel Big. I wonder if you remember the moments that feel big in the same way I do. Like the day the ocean waves tried to pull you from my arms, but I wouldn't give you up. I hope you remember not the taste of the salt or the force of the water, but that for a second I was bigger than the sea. One day the ocean will come with another name, and you will ask me to let you go. You will remember how you needed me to lift you higher than the smallest ripple, and I will realize it's time to open my arms and watch you swim.
Kids are such good inspiration for poems, aren't they?
Yeah.
Especially as a dad who, like, for me, when I became a dad, even though it wasn't strictly planned at the time, or at the time that it was supposed to happen, I always wanted to be a dad. And I've always felt like that was the best, most important thing, that I did, being able to try to be a guide and a caretaker for this young life that, was here by no choice of their own. Yeah. And fragile. And I remember taking from the hospital and thinking the first time, I was like 23 years old and I'm holding this baby and I'm thinking, we can just leave with him?
I feel like that's a universal feeling, David.
Is that legal?
In my late 30s, and my wife and I had the same exact thought when we came home. It's like, are we allowed to, like, there's no laws that preventing us from having no idea what we're doing?
Shouldn't there have been a test or something? Don't I have to have a license for this?
Right?
I think what makes that, whatever situation it's in, whether you've adopted a child or whether you're a very active aunt or uncle or, figure in a young child's life, there's something about that, watching them navigate through the struggles and trials, and sometimes they don't recognize that it's as big as we do. Like this sort of situation, I was thinking of my youngest son, Micah, when he used to you'd had to watch him closely because he'd just walk right off the edge in the deep end. He'd walk first and think about it later. He'd pull him up and he was still laughing, like no idea what danger he was just in. But he's so used to like somebody being there to pick him up. And we hope that we do a good job at that.
Yeah, and this is based off a true story as well. If memory serves, I believe this was the first time we took my son to the beach, and it had to have been in the first year of his life because he was born in December, and I think we went to the beach that following summer. But it was just having him experience the water for the first time. He's just sitting there in front of me, and my wife is taking a video and the waves, I get distracted by something, and the waves just went slam into him, and he starts crying, and we started comforting him, and it was all over within a matter of seconds. But it just inspired me, because it's like, the ocean is a great metaphor for a lot of different things. So
Gosh, yeah.
just thinking about this thing of I saved you from this moment, and I might not be able to save you from all the moments in the future, or you might not want to save me from the thing. It might be a good thing that's coming through.
Yeah.
Or it could be a variety of different things that are going to, affect you in the future. And just so thinking about that as a dad, it just kind of inspired me.
That's a great point that I hadn't thought of in this, that there may be those moments where the wrong decision, obviously, instinctively, and in this situation, the right decision was to say, but there are times, I think, where a parent tries to rescue a child when really maybe the child is wanting to get away, doesn't want to be rescued, or maybe shouldn't be. And I don't mean like, neglect or abuse.
Right.
And I say child maybe as a, as a grown child going off to college, or, doing their first experience. And if you're too protective, then they don't get the chance to go out there and experience what's that thrill of taking the leap like.
Making the mistakes or variety of different things.
I can't help but think part of that is like, I hope you remember I was a good dad, that I did a good job. I hope that that's what I did.
Yeah, that's something I think about a lot. Trying to be the best possible parent you can be. And my wife and I talk about just like, we're going to mess up somehow.
Of course.
We're going to do something, and he's going to remember it one way, and we're going to be like, I don't remember that happening, but it was such a big deal to you. And so we're going to screw you up somehow, but we're going to try our best we're going to try our best in every way possible not to do it on purpose.
We talked before we started recording about Philip Larkin, who was a poet. Mm-hmm. He's the one who has that poem, they fuck you up, your mom and dad. They don't mean to, but they do. You sound like a really good parent. You sound like you're doing your best, and you're keeping an open mind.
Can I say something quick, though?
Oh, please do.
My book has sort of sections.
Yeah.
And part of the early sections deal with grief, sadness, depression. And so there was a big chunk of my life where I kind of didn't want to write poetry, or I associated it with all this sadness, so I didn't feel like I needed to write poetry when I was happy.
Yeah.
And, that was some of the early stuff between me and my wife. Was not that she was angry about it, but she, would bring it up sometimes of like, write poetry about me. And I'd be like, well, I'm happy, And so when we did that reading through our own stuff, and when I started to collect everything, I started writing again, and my writing was more joyful. And so, the section with my son is just so full of joy. That's sort of the journey that the book takes, from the grief that is part of that first poem we read to the joy of my current day life.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
Well, I'm so glad you said that, because it's okay to write about the joyful things too. In fact, I think it's important to,
Yeah, it took me a while to figure that out, but
I think that's true for all of us. Walt Whitman making his barbaric yawp. There's the joyful things in his I Sing the Body Electric. Of course, a lot of that is celebration, and that helps me too to read that. Mary Oliver is a poet whose name keeps coming up in some of these discussions, and she's written about some very difficult things. She's been through some very dark things. She was abused as a child, spent a lot of her time walking in the forest with a notebook. But there is such joy in so much of her work, recognizing the darkness for what it is, but also recognizing the just miracle of being alive and being able to witness it. The water thing, though, is a really nice tie-in because what that moment could have been like, it had me thinking of my son Jonathan. There was an instance where we were out playing along a friend's boat, and I had a moment where I panicked. The water was moving pretty quickly. I went to reach for the boat, and I ended up reaching for him. And I still feel this tremendous guilt about almost drowning my son. You know what I mean? I'm laughing now, but I was like horrified at the time. And that's a moment that I would think, when I read your piece, I thought, God, I hope Jonathan doesn't remember. that moment because water can be such a powerful force that can, change your world really quickly, and you need to take it seriously. And this next poem, there's a section of it that also had me thinking along those same lines. Tell us about why you chose the next piece that you're going to read.
There is a poet named Brenna Twohy. When I have done other projects as well, and I'm still working on a couple different projects. One of them is a fiction novel, and a section of her poem called January was inspiring to me when I was writing that book. So I'll read the whole thing, and then afterwards I'll let you know the part that really spoke to me in the poem. Okay. May. It has been a year since the last time I told him I loved him, and it scratches at the back of my throat. A nasty cough desperate to break free from my body. My horoscope reads, "Happy birthday, Gemini. Mercury is in retrograde and didn't buy you a present. The planets didn't think you'd make it. We'd watch you collect pill bottles, and we settled in for a long winter. We saw you pacing on that bridge in the whole sky dressed in black." April. I'm worried you're biting off more than you can chew, everyone says, and I laugh and run my tongue hard against the sharps of my teeth. Look into my mouth, this endless angry thing. You have no idea how much I can consume. March. I read an article about the instinctive drowning response. It doesn't look anything like in the movies, but you don't call for help. Just try to pull air into your lungs. Just try to survive this water. Sometimes a child will go under while their parent is watching, and they don't even know anything is wrong. My mom asked if everything is okay, and I say of course. Drowning is a quiet, desperate thing. February. 3 dozen crows drop dead in downtown Portland, and no one knows why. January. One time in junior high, we found a 24-pack of Natty Light stuck up in a tree in that field with the water tower. It was at least 100 degrees that whole summer, and we sipped skunky sun-scorched beer and thought, this is the life. One time I wrote in my notebook, he loves me so much, it might shatter me, which tastes different now. And so the part, if you've been following along with sort of the themes of what I've been writing, the part that really has spoken to me over the years is sometimes a child will go under while their parent is watching and they don't even know anything is wrong. My mom asks if everything is okay, and I say, of course. Drowning is a quiet, desperate thing. And that part is always, even before I had a kid, that part has always been with me and stuck with me for the last, I don't know, maybe 8 years, 9 years since I've read it. And I feel like it really fits into the theme of what I've been trying to sort of convey with my writing as of late. Because drowning is such a metaphor and has always been used as a metaphor for grief, because it feels like you're underwater and it feels like you're never going to surface. I think it fits. Like I said, I think it just fits so well with that grief theme.
And it also, I think it ties in all of these poems, this idea of loss or potential loss, and the grief, or even the self-questioning, like, I hope you remember that I did a good job trying to protect you or whatever. But also that whole thing of as poets, we often say it's our job to notice things, and the importance of being aware. That article that Brenna talks about having read, or the speaker in the poem, that section reminds me of Stevie Smith's poem, Not Waving, by Drowning. And there's a line in that poem where she says, I was too far out all my life and not waving, but drowning, because it can be so hard that we don't always notice that there's a quiet, desperate thing going on right under our nose.
Right. Yeah. And that's definitely the part that spoke to me.
Yeah. Yeah. So you said you're working on a novel.
Yeah, there's a lot. I always feel like I have a lot of projects going on, but never enough time to finish them.
I hear that.
I would be regretful if I didn't mention, I have an ongoing history series for the Daily Item called Hidden History. It just explores different aspects of the Valley's past, taking little points of historical objects or places and sort of exploring how they came to be or what happened to them. As we're recording this, we'll be publishing a story about Knoebels.
Oh, okay.
They have the original carousel horse from their first ride that's displayed in the park. Hidden History is a series that I've been working on for about 3 years, and eventually we plan to publish a book. I don't know what the time frame of that is quite yet, but it's coming.
Fantastic. I love stuff like that.
And then I have been working on a fiction novel for longer than I care to admit. It's just, other things get in the way, and its title is A Quiet, Desperate Thing. And I had reached out to Brenna a couple months ago to ask her for permission to use that section of the poem in the story, and she did give me permission.
Oh, fantastic.
I've been writing poetry a lot since January, since we released the book, and feel like I've written a lot of great stuff.
Isn't that something? It feels like you had all this stuff that you put together for collection, and now you got it out, and it's like now it feeds the beast a little bit.
Yeah, that's
right?
sort of what happened when we were first reading through our notebooks. It inspired me to start writing, and then when I started collecting everything again for the book, I started writing again. And now that I'm promoting the book, I'm back to writing even more on a regular basis. So as I write that, I've been thinking about the next poetry book and what's going to go in it. I think the next one will probably include some poetry from my wife, Jessica Strawser.
Oh, nice.
She has been writing a little bit more since we've been going to these open mics, because I'll nudge her and I'll be like, you should read something. She's also inspired by some of the strong feminist women that are there at these things. When we were at Jessica Nirvana Ram's open mic a couple months ago.
Wonderful poet.
My wife loves her and her work and was really inspired to write a few things.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for being with me here. We will put links in the show notes for where people can get a hold of Those Who Wait. Thank you so much for taking a big chunk of your afternoon here with me and being on In Three Poems. This was a lot of fun. Thanks for being here,
I
Justin.
really enjoyed this, and I appreciate you letting me come on.
We're going to wait for that novel, no matter how long it takes. Thank you so much, Justin.
Thank you.
For In Three Poems, I'm David J. Bauman. Our guest has been journalist and poet Justin Strawser. We'll soon take a brief mid-season break, but before we do that, we have the honor of talking with poet Carl Phillips. He and I will read from his book Scattered Snows to the North and his Pulitzer Prize-winning collection of poetry, Then the War. That's ahead of us next week, so pass the word. And if you could support the show for just a small amount, you can have first access to some behind-the-scenes bonus material, including a feature we're calling The Fourth Poem. Just click on the link in the show notes where it says support the show, or go to our Ko-Fi page for In Three Poems. That's just ko-fi.com/In Three Poems. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week.